Hello everyone. Bonjour à tous. On va parler en anglais, puisqu'à Bruxelles, ça se passe très souvent en anglais pour atteindre et parler à un maximum de personnes. So welcome again. I'll start with who knows Canada? Raise your hand if you have been to Canada. Okay. Raise your hand if you already do business in Canada or with Canadians. Okay, we're here today to make it better. So that's the purpose of what we're doing just today. Hello, my name is Sam Ayoub. I'm the president of the Canada-Europe Economic Chamber, and I would like to welcome you to the third EU-Canada Business Summit. Do you know that Canada is the second largest country in the world with huge natural resources, that Canada is a hub of technology, including AI, but most of all, that Canada is about the people. Yes, nearly 40 million people, representing one of the most educated countries in the world. So can anyone tell me why we don't talk about Canada more? All we talk about are the US, China, India, the Middle East, Africa. Canada, not enough. Even though I consider it the most European country outside Europe, with deep European roots and a trading partner as if Canada was part of the EU. Again, we are here to change that. So you can look at Canada and Canadian as a solution to many challenges today. We are here, all of us, in this beautiful place to meet, to talk, and a little later to share a few drinks. But until then, we're gonna discuss 5 important topics with our conference speakers. We will start things off with economics and finance to have a broader view of the current economic situation. We'll then talk about the Canada-EU partnership that underpins the supply chain disruption that we are experiencing and inflation that comes with it. After a short break sponsored by Shopify, we'll talk about energy security, which I think is very relevant these days, to say the least. And we will then move on to clean technology and the environment, and then finish with e-commerce, which has become an integral part of our everyday lives. A cocktail reception will also take place at the end of today's summit, right here at La Salle de Lorraine. But first, we have 2 opening speeches. I am pleased to welcome Minister Mary Ng, Minister of International Trade, Export, Promotion, Small Business and Economic Development, with a recorded message from Ottawa.
Thank you for that introduction, Sam, for once again bringing together such a terrific range of businesses and industries from both sides of the Atlantic. And hello, everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. I'm sorry I couldn't be in Brussels with you, but I'm delighted to share a few words to help kick off this year's summit. And I think we can all agree that Canada and Europe's close relationship is anchored by our deep people-to-people ties. But it's also sustained by our strong economic partnership. And that partnership has been crucial in helping us weather the challenges that we have faced over the last couple of years. And this trading relationship has only gotten stronger. The EU is Canada's second largest trading partner, with a record high of $100 billion in goods and services flowing between us last year. And your enthusiastic participation in this forum underscores an important fact, that trade and investment and the opportunities that they create are the twin engines that are driving Canada and EU's economic recovery, building our shared economic resilience, and helping us achieve the transition to a cleaner, greener future. For Canada, supporting our businesses to grow into the dynamic markets of the EU means encouraging them to use everyday resources that's at their disposal. This includes CETA, the 5th anniversary, which was just recently this past September. And what a great 5 years it has been in this landmark trade agreement. Since its launch in 2017, CETA has been delivering results for businesses and workers across Canada and the EU. Indeed, CETA is opening up avenues for collaboration and expansion, creating good jobs for economic growth for Canadians and Europeans alike. With CETA, growth in Canada-EU bilateral trade between 2016 and 2021 has outpaced trade expansion with other free trade agreement partners. Let us continue doing everything we can to support businesses and create the right environments for them to grow. And to all of the resilient and innovative business owners and entrepreneurs who are watching, I encourage you to continue harnessing the opportunities available to you in the European and Canadian markets through CETA. Thank you, merci, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Let me now introduce you to Canada's ambassador to the EU, Ailish Campbell, for the second opening address. Ailish.
Hi, bonjour. Nice to see everyone today, here in Brussels and also to those attending online. Sam, merci beaucoup pour l'accueil et aussi l'introduction et aussi le travail de votre équipe. Thanks so much for your work and the work of your team to make today possible. Special thanks to Minister Ng for her opening remarks by video. I know that she maintains her absolute passion for this agreement and for seeing more businesses of all sizes, and in particularly small businesses, where we've seen some incredible successes over the last 5 years, continue to grow their businesses here in the EU and to welcome you, EU businesses, to Canada. Je tiens également à remercier nos partenaires au sein de gouvernements provinciaux et aussi territoires municipaux et fédéraux qui travaillent avec nous pour assurer la prospérité du Canada grâce au commerce international. Also fantastic to see people joining online. Sam and I were just talking earlier that Sam's had this vision for this event for many years, but of course something called the pandemic got in the way. So last year there was a fantastic in-person event, Sam, if I'm correct, but this is really the retour of full hybrid and in-person events. So very much looking forward to hearing from the panel today and also seeing you later at the cocktail. I think we have more than 300 people and businesses participating today, so welcome to each and every one of you. As we're going to see from today's panels, from finance to e-commerce to clean tech, you come from a wide range of industry sectors. For all of these sectors, there's great business opportunities based on our strong, reliable, and trusted Canada-EU partnership. I can't agree with Sam more that it's time we start talking about Canada more. We've overcome many challenges together, Canada and the European Union and its important 27 member states. And I think it's important that we pause right now just to think about some of the geostrategic context that we're in, and specifically the war on Ukraine by Russia. Our unity and collective strength remains more important than ever. Canada is home to more than 1.4 million people of Ukrainian descent. This is the world's second largest Ukrainian diaspora, and the atrocity of the invasion is felt deeply by all Canadians. For Canada and Canadians, the attack on Ukraine is not only an attack on Ukraine, it is an attack on all democracies, as well on Europe, which is experiencing, in effect, a series of hybrid conflicts, including the weaponization of energy, and it is an attack on our shared democratic values. Russia's actions have threatened the entire international rules-based order. As Prime Minister Trudeau said, when he came here in Brussels in March, not only for a NATO leaders summit, but also to address the EU Parliament and have meetings with President von der Leyen and President Michel. He said the EU has mobilized to defend democracy, and as always, you can count on the friendship and full support of Canada every step of the way. And I don't mind telling you that I stand here as the granddaughter of someone who survived 6 years of serving Canada on European soil, in Italy as a prisoner of war, and in France and helping to liberate Belgium. So it's a special honor for me to be here today, because his survival has meant that I'm here and we can continue to do our incredibly strong work together to defend each of our democracies. Canada and the EU, as well as international partners, have been working closely to maintain pressure on Russia, including by adopting and enforcing unprecedented sanctions and export controls and support for refugees, and to ensure that Russia is held to account for its illegal and unjustified aggression. And we will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in NATO. Canada's largest serving battalion right now is outside of Canada is on EU soil, serving in Latvia as part of Operation Forward Presence. We were also honored since 2014 to have a bilateral training mission of the Ukrainian military forces. We've now trained over 33,000 Ukrainian military members. That was before the second invasion in February of this year. That's just Canada's effort alone, and we will continue to join with the EU in all of your efforts. It may seem that, of course, our focus here today is on business, but let's be frank, the geostrategic background and the opportunities that are going to be created because of the green shift and the shift to more reliable forms of energy, clean technology, and our greater awareness of the importance of underscoring trusted partnerships and security in our trade, investment, and innovation relationships, I think is just heightened by the crisis that is, of course, having its most severe impact currently in the physical location of Ukraine. So now let's turn to perhaps more business. After 5 years of the Canada-EU CETA and our strategic partnership agreement, our relationship could not be stronger. As we just heard from Minister Ng in her address, two-way bilateral merchandise trade hit a record in 2021. So despite the pandemic, we saw no decrease or sustained decrease at all in our trade. In fact, we've reached a record high of over 100 billion Canadian dollars, or 67.5 billion euros, representing a 33% increase compared to 5 years previously before CETA was signed. Similarly, I think it's incredibly important to underscore that foreign direct investment is the rails on which trade and business relationships travel, and FDI is also incredibly strong. The EU is Canada's second largest trading partner and second largest two-way foreign direct investor. The stock of Canadian direct investment abroad in the EU is also incredibly strong at 229 billion Canadian in 2021. The EU's 27 stock of FDI in Canada was over 260 billion Canadian, or approximately 182 billion euros. And I do want to recognize that we have our foreign direct investment champion for the bilateral embassy to Belgium, and of course working across the EU, Ayoub. If you're here in the audience, if you want to just stand up and give a quick wave if you're around. I think you're in the back. That's our foreign direct investment champion based in the embassy to Belgium, and so please make sure that you see him at the coffee break to learn more about our FDI strategy. Canada welcomes the Netherlands' ratification on July 12th of CETA. There's only 11 more countries to go. You might have heard that every EU member state has to ratify CETA for it to come into full effect. Of course, it's already in provisional force, so 98% of the agreement is already in force. Those are the competencies under EU competency, but each member state also has to ratify in order to bring into effect certain aspects of the deal. So I've done my homework. I've ratified the deal, Canada's ratified the deal on our side, and we look forward to welcoming the other 11 EU member states as they ratify, and I've got my fingers crossed that Germany is next. While results like these are impressive, of course, CETA's value goes far beyond the numbers, which brings me to opportunities in the green transition. Canada and the EU have a long history of cooperation in addressing climate change and supporting the green transition. Last March, Prime Minister Trudeau and President von der Leyen reaffirmed the urgency of addressing climate change and our joint commitment to accelerating the global transition to a green, carbon-neutral future. Internationally, we will see deeper cooperation in this regard at COP27 in Egypt, which has already, as you know, begun. Canada and the EU are also strong advocates for an ambitious post-2020 global biodiversity framework to conserve 30% of the world's marine and land areas by 2030. And Canada is going to welcome the world to Montreal from December 7th to December 19th for the 15th Conference of the Parties, or COP, to the UN Biodiversity Convention. Aussi, entre notre accord de partenariat stratégique, nous bénéficions d'un cadre institutionnel riche de plus de 50 dialogues, comités et groupes de travail, offrant une plateforme de collaboration dans les domaines tels que les changements climatiques, la biodiversité et la coopération réglementaire, et à l'appui de la transition écologique. We have more than 50 dialogues across a whole range of sectors which are based in our strategic partnership agreement. This is a treaty separate and distinct from the trade agreement, on which we host a range of dialogues, including on LNG, hydrogen, the green transition, security and defense, digital transition, and many other topics. Moving forward, these institutions will continue to support our ongoing dialogue, our ability to trade, invest, and do innovation with one another, move people, capital, and other forms of investment between our two entities, and of course recover from COVID. And this is also where clean tech comes in. There's going to be a clean tech panel later, but I think it's important to note that the Canadian clean tech sector is predominantly composed of small and medium-sized businesses that employ over 200,000 Canadians in good, well-paying jobs. 13 Canadian companies have been named to this year's prestigious Global Clean Tech Top 100 Firms. The EU, for its part, has 17. So I think we're batting above average there with our Canadian clean tech companies, which means your networking with them is more important than ever. Now allow me to highlight another potential opportunity for our partnership, and that is in critical raw materials and energy security. As the Canada-EU summit at the leaders level, Prime Minister Trudeau, President Michel, and President von der Leyen underscored last June, the security of critical minerals and metals in our supply chains is a common shared priority. Both are essential to the green transition and to achieve climate neutral goals. Canada and the EU share the view that a clean energy transition will deliver energy security. In Europe especially, this includes developing renewable energy resources to reduce dependence on Russian oil and Russian gas. Prime Minister Trudeau recently observed that the market for many critical minerals has been cornered by less reliable, authoritarian, certainly less like-minded suppliers. I would just like to flag that the German Marshall Fund's Transatlantic Trends Survey, a long-standing survey, which myself and many others felt passionately about putting Canada into. So this was a traditional survey on EU-US relations. So to build on Sam's theme of more Canada, we worked with several partners to ensure that Canada was also tested as part of this public opinion research survey that the German Marshall Fund runs. And Canada in 2021, as well as again this year, was, along with Sweden and Germany, identified by publics across the EU as the most reliable partner for European business and European governments. While supplies from places with high environmental and labor standards will at times cost more, our Prime Minister has noted that resilience and reliability of supply is also an important aspect of business and board strategy, understanding the full implications of their choices as to who their supply partners are and where they locate investment, particularly post-pandemic and now with the war in Ukraine. With our significant renewable energy resources and technologies, our highly qualified personnel, and our wealth of critical raw materials, as well as our ability to do immigration from almost any country in the planet, in order to support the green transition, we have an incredible policy, human capital, and natural factor endowment value proposition ready to support the EU's energy transition. The Government of Canada's most recent budget earmarked 3.8 billion Canadian or 2.8 billion euros in order to implement Canada's first critical minerals strategy. We've also established a Canada-EU strategic partnership on raw materials. This, of course, parallels a very strong partnership we have with the United States. It's already delivered results, facilitating several business-to-business projects and investments that will help the EU access critical raw materials from Canada. We're also working with our provincial and regional partners to attract the investments required for Canada to remain a preferred energy security partner throughout your transition to net zero. We have to develop the right technologies and understand the social and environmental impacts, which is why we'll also continue to work with the EU on the implementation, the design, currently ongoing, and implementation of the Carbon Border Adjustment Measure. We're also collaborating in a Canada-EU working group on energy transition and LNG, and we're exploring ways to advance cooperation on hydrogen, biomass, and other alternative energy sources. We need businesses on both sides of the Atlantic to work more closely together to build resilient and diverse supply chains. Now I want to just chat a little bit about resources for Canadian companies for your access to the EU market, which is, of course, my passion as the former Chief Trade Commissioner of Canada and as Canada's ambassador to the EU. For the Canadian companies that are here today, and for those of you joining us online, the Canadian government is here to support you with a Team Canada approach. I hope we have colleagues joining us. If we have any colleagues that are here joining us from missions across the EU, my own team, Ruben, if you don't mind putting your hand up. Ruben is our CETA expert. Please see Ruben at the coffee break, but I believe we have Andreas and others. If you're from the Government of Canada or Export Development Canada or Business Development Canada, if you put your hand up, anyone from my team? right? These are people that you need to see at the coffee breaks, tonight at the cocktail, to understand more about how we can serve you and how we can facilitate two-way business. We have offices, for those of you who are not familiar, the Trade Commissioner Service has offices in over 160 cities around the world. Sam, you talked about Canada being the most European nation outside of the continent of Europe, which I firmly agree with. I think we're also an incredible Pacific country, a country that benefits from close ties with Asia. And indeed, I've had to remind my EU partners, we're always ready to do business, for example, including on various energy sources and supplies, as is evinced by our large partnership with Japan, Indonesia, South Korea, and others on our Pacific coast, where LNG is and will continue to be. There's a massive expansion underway on our Pacific coast for LNG to Asia. Nos soutiens s'est concentré sur la sécurisation des chaînes d'approvisionnement et la mobilisation d'un plus grand nombre de PME, small businesses, et de propriétaires d'entreprises et tous les horizons et de toutes les identités pour qu'ils se joignent au rang des exportateurs, notamment par le biais du commerce électronique et de partenaires novateurs. So we're also very interested in facilitating e-commerce businesses, and I'm thrilled that Sam noted that Shopify is one of the sponsors of today, a fantastic platform enabling e-commerce businesses around the world. So we're all here to continue to help your business. To all of you here today, thank you so much. Your participation in the summit underscores our close relationships. I think I've just described in brief how while the world is becoming a more dangerous, unfortunately insecure place, which is of course not Canada's vision for the world at all, our objective is to be the most interoperable, solid, safe, secure democracy and economy on the planet. We will deliver to our citizens market access to the US, to Asia, to the EU. We will certainly deliver a strong and prosperous and diverse society. And we need great partners. And so more and more, please continue to rely on Canada. Please engage more with us. And I'll end on Sam's notes. Please let's continue to talk more about Canada. Thanks so much.